Well, hello and welcome to Fuquay-Varina United Methodist Church. My name is Owen. I'm one of the pastors here, if we haven't had a chance to meet yet, and we're glad you're here. We know that life can get crazy, and sometimes we have to find time to worship during the week, and so we have crafted this worship opportunity just for you. We know, nothing's perfect, but whenever you're worshiping and wherever you're worshiping, we're glad that we can be here worshiping together. If you are with us for the first time or you'd like to let us know you're here, if they just got questions we can follow up with, we'd love for you to text us, send the word hello to the number that's right here at the bottom of your screen. We'd love to get back in touch with you as soon as we can to see how we can connect or help solve whatever it is that you've got for us. So don't hesitate to reach out. Also, if this is an opportunity that you regularly participate in and you'd like to partner with us in mission and ministry, we'd love to have that partnership with you as we serve our greater community here around Fuquay-Varina. You can go to our website, fvumc.org/give. And we'd love, again, any sort of support that you can offer will help us continue to do this and do it well. And so you can check that out while you're there. Anything that you need, hopefully, will be right there on our website. Particularly if you're looking for other worship opportunities, you'll be able to see those on our worship page. And again, we're just so glad you're here, and we hope that you find something meaningful, something you can hang your hat on this week as we participate in worship together.
Spirit of the living God, Spirit of the living God, we only wanna hear your voice. We're hanging on every word. 'Cause when you speak and when you move, when you do what only you can do, it changes us, it changes what we see and what we see. When you come in the room, when you do what only you can do, it changes us, it changes what we see and what we see. You're changing everything. Oh.
Well, friends, this week we are in our second and also final week in our sermon series, God with Us, just this short series before we head into Advent. And today we'll be exploring what it means that God is with us in our pain. And honestly, as I have been preparing for today, I have felt pretty underqualified to be able to talk about pain and what it is that God is with us in our pain. It's not that I've never had pain or have never experienced pain, but I just recognize that the pain that I have experienced in my life is pretty limited compared to what I know many of you have experienced, particularly those of you who live with chronic pain. I've been thinking about, though, my own relationship with pain and kind of tapping into what is it that I do know about pain and my own relationship to it. And I have recognized that I'm someone who just tends to numb out on my pain or tries to avoid it or even minimize it whenever possible. If you are familiar with the Enneagram, I am an Enneagram 9, and I love when everything is at peace and harmony, everything's good and great. But when things get hard or when things that are painful tend to come up, it is way more natural for me to try to avoid that or avoid my pain or my problems and just hope that somehow by avoiding it that it will go away, which never actually works. And so it's just hard for me to kind of face pain head on. Even if you are someone who is more accepting of your own pain, or if you're someone who doesn't really have a choice but to live in chronic or constant pain, I think that whenever it is that we talk about pain or painful things in community, we kind of collectively tend to have a response like mine, a kind of avoidant response. It's easy to ask somebody, how are you? But if and when someone shares that they are not doing well or that something is really hard in their life, I think that it is kind of our collective natural response to try to smooth over the pain that other people might be experiencing by turning it to a positive note or saying like, well, at least, or if only, and that kind of thing, and just trying to make it smoothed over so we don't have to sit in that place of pain. It can be really hard to kind of enter into that pain with other people. However, I think it is really important for us as a church family to learn how to talk about pain, because I think that inevitably we are going to either experience pain ourselves or to walk through it with other people. And to just completely avoid it gives us no skills to be able to discern what it looks like that God actually enters into our pain with us. There's a poet named Padraig O'Tama, and I love a line that he says about pain. He's a poet, and one line he says is that wherever there is pain, there is story. And that story could be, the pain of lament, could be a chronic pain, it could be the pain of a dream that has been deferred. It might be the pain of a particular ailment or part of your body. You have leg pain or arm pain or hip pain or anything like that. It could be the pain of a diagnosis or even the pain of a fractured friendship or relationship. And I think because of the way that we often treat pain and kind of suffering in community as something that should be more minimized and not talked about, then I think that we might inadvertently, if we kind of go down that pathway, think that therefore, whenever it is that we come before God, that we also have to minimize our pain before God. But our scripture this morning reminds us that Jesus does not shy away from our pain. And our scripture, it comes from Mark chapter 5, starting in verse 24, going to verse 34. And this is a story about a woman who has been bleeding for 12 years. And she finally comes and makes it to Jesus kind of as a last ditch effort, perhaps. She's been trying for so long to figure out what's wrong and to remedy it. And when she hears that Jesus is nearby, she goes and meets him there, hoping that maybe if she can just touch the hem of her garment, that she will be made well. We'll start in Mark chapter 5, verse 24, as we read her story together this morning. And a large crowd followed him and pressed in on him. This is Jesus. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. We're not told her name. She had endured much under many physicians, and she had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather she grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd, and she touched his cloak. For she said, "If I but touch his clothes, I may be made well." Immediately her hemorrhaging stopped, and she felt it in her body that she had been healed of her disease. Immediately aware that power had gone out from him, Jesus turned around in the crowd and he said, "Who touched my clothes?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in on you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, and she fell down before him, and she told him the whole truth. He, Jesus, said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." I've read this scripture many times throughout my life, but this week I read it through the lens of pain, knowing that where there is pain, there is story. And it made me see this story in a whole different light. It made me wonder, what was the story of this woman's pain? It says that she had been bleeding for 12 years and that she had gone to many physicians. She had spent all of her money and still things had just gotten worse and she had no answers. If you have ever kind of walked through a season of uncertainty of a medical diagnosis or have been waiting to go to many doctors to hear what is going on, or if you have walked through that season with somebody else, a friend or a family member, then you know just how difficult that season can be when you are living in the midst of the limbo space between the pain that you're feeling and the uncertainty of the diagnosis or what might be able to be done to remedy it. It seems like this woman was somebody who was desperate for healing. She had tried all of the options and gone to all of the physicians. Scripture doesn't actually name that she is in pain, but in those words at least, it does tell us though that she had suffered for 12 years. And while it doesn't say that she particularly was in pain, though it does say she was suffering, it does say that when she touched Jesus, she felt in her body that she was healed from her bleeding and that it stopped immediately. And for her to notice immediately the bleeding had just all of a sudden stopped. I have to also believe that there was a lot of it. You don't notice something to stop immediately unless it is a constant in your life. And so I think that she had to be in some sort of pain, particularly had to go through a lot of suffering for those 12 years. Her reaction to Jesus healing her after she had just reached out and touched his cloak was a reaction that Scripture says was of fear and of trembling and falling before Jesus. And many times in the past when I've read that, I've kind of interpreted it as fear and trembling as like she was afraid, like Jesus didn't know who had touched her, who had touched him, and she was maybe afraid of being found out or telling Jesus kind of that she was the one. However, as I read this particular passage in the context of Mark at large, and particularly Mark 4 right before it, where Jesus stills a storm and the reaction of everyone there is that they were afraid, or a little bit earlier in Mark chapter 5, where Jesus casts out a demon and the reaction of the people there is that they are afraid. I recognize that this afraid is not the same kind of fear and trembling that we might associate with like fear and trepidation and like being scared, but instead that being afraid or the fear and trepidation that this woman felt was instead a kind of fear that was awe or reverence of God. She had just experienced this miraculous healing of something that she had been trying to have this problem solved for so long, and then finally it happened, and she had a moment to stand in awe of God. After kind of standing in awe of Jesus who had just healed her, Scripture also says that she told Jesus the whole truth or everything. And this phrase, the whole, right before the whole truth, whenever it shows up elsewhere in Scripture, it is often accompanied by the whole earth or the whole land or the whole nation, which leads me to believe that, yes, maybe she was just telling Jesus the truth, that she was the one who touched him. But I kind of wonder if instead of just that limited amount of information, that she might have told him her whole truth, everything, in the same way that the world is so expansive and vast, telling her whole truth, I have to imagine included the fullness of her story and not just the limited story of that day and those couple of seconds what had happened. I cannot help but wonder what everything or what the whole truth might have included in her story. I have to wonder, what exactly changed for her in this moment. It had to be so much. I wonder, what she had missed out on in her life because she had been bleeding for so long. Did she have to miss school, or did she have to miss hanging out with her friends? Was she even able to go out of her house very often? Was she an outcast from a young age? When she left the house, was she only able to leave for a certain amount of time before she had to come home because she had been bleeding too much? Had this kept her from getting married and kind of doing the things perhaps that other people her age were doing? Was this unable, or did this make her unable to have kids, I wonder? Had she stopped going out in public for fear of what might happen to her? Scripture doesn't say anything about her being ritually unclean in this particular passage, but based on kind of Jewish laws at the time, I wonder if, she hadn't also been able to go to the temple for the last 12 years. And yet, at the same time, the Scripture says that it was her faith that made her well. I wonder, did she tell Jesus what it was like not being able to go to the temple and to worship with her community? Did she tell Jesus what it was like to be excluded from the fullness of life? Friends, our pain tells a story. Recently, I had a friend apologize to me. I'm kind of going through a difficult season, and she apologized for talking about that same hard thing again and again and again. And as soon as she apologized, I kind of stopped her and was like, no need to apologize. How many times when I was going through a hard thing or something difficult, did I just tell you the same story again and again and again, or maybe slightly differently, but again at the same time? I think when we are going through hard or difficult things, it makes the world of a difference to have somebody to sit and to listen to our story, to listen to what it is that we have gone through. And I don't know if this woman who had been bleeding for 12 years had anyone to share her story along with, kind of along the way. But I do imagine that having Jesus there in that moment to stop and to listen. Not just a friend or a family member, but Jesus, to take the time and to stop and to listen to her whole truth. I have to believe that that made the world of a difference for her. I have to believe that Jesus heard all of the pain, all of the heartache, all of the times that she went to a doctor and there were still no answers, all the ways that she had to rearrange her life and change things because of her condition and because she had to spend all of her money trying to figure out what was wrong and to just come up short in the end with no answers. I'm sure there's so many different seasons of that she's replayed in her head again and again and again. Maybe you too are in a place where you're just reliving the same pain or the same heartache, maybe even the same trauma or the same fracture in relationship or the same medical condition or diagnoses. Maybe you too have kind of run into dead ends and spent all your money or all of your time trying to figure out what's going on. And yet in the end, you've come up short. You don't have any better answers than when you started. Maybe you too are like this woman and you are desperate for change, desperate for Jesus to make some kind of difference in your life. And today, this woman who has been bleeding for 12 years has reminded me that not only does Jesus hear our stories of pain and suffering and desire wholeness and flourishing for us, but Jesus also is with us in our pain, and Jesus listens to our whole truth of what it is that we are going through. So if you are someone who feels like you're stuck in a place of reliving one story again and again and again, or maybe pain again and again, I hope that you hear today that you are not alone and that Jesus hears our stories, Jesus hears our pain and listens to the whole truth of what it is that we're going through. Friends, when we come before Jesus, we don't have to minimize our pain. We don't have to sugarcoat it. We don't have to brace ourselves for the if-onlys or the platitudes that people might say to us. But we can honestly come before God, knowing that God hears our hurt and our pain and our struggles. And we can know that our God is with us. Amen.
Ramblers in the wilderness, we can't find what we need. We get a little restless from the search and get a little worn down in between.
Like a bull chasing a matador is a man left to his own schemes. Everybody needs someone beside him, shining like a lighthouse from the sea. Brother, let me be your shelter, never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're low. Brother, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving on. Be the one to light the way, bring you home. Face down in the desert now, there's a cage locked around my heart. I found a way to drop my keys where my feelings were. Now my hands can't reach that far. I ain't made for rivalry, I can never take the world alone. I know that in my weakness I am strong, but it's your love that brings me home. Brother, let me be your shelter, never leave you alone. I can be the one you call when you're feeling low. Brother, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving on. Be the one to light the way, bring you home. And when you call and need me near, saying where'd you go, brother, I'm right here. And on those days when the sky begins to fall, you're my blood of my blood. We can get through it all. Hey! and get through it all. Woo. Brother, let me be your shelter, never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're feeling alone. Brother, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving on. Be the one to light the way, bring you home. Brother, let me be your shelter, never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're low. Brother, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving on. Be the one to light the way, bring you home. Be the one to light the way, bring you home.
Again, it's been great to be with you together today. I would remind you, we'd love to know you're here. If you want to text us, just text the word hello to the number that's at the bottom of your screen. We'd love to follow up with you, particularly if there are questions you have after today's worship, or if there's something we can do to help you take the next step in your life of faith, your journey. We'd love to be able to do that with you, to partner with you in that way. So don't hesitate to reach out. And again, if you'd like to join with us in mission and ministry here in Fuquay-Varina, you can go to our website, fvumc.org/give. We'd love your support. We'd love to partner with you in ministry in all sorts of different ways. We have plenty of other worshiping opportunities live on Sunday morning, as well as throughout the week. And so don't forget to hop over to our website, fvumc.org, to check out all those opportunities. We'd love to get a chance to meet you should the time come. And until then, it's been great to worship together with you today.